Hey guys, hope you've had a good week so far. Today we're going to pick up off from where we left um, with our notes earlier. So remember, we've been talking about the causes of World War One, and so you have first off we talked about nationalism, and I think we're pretty well versed on that right now. We also talked about imperialism. Um, and one thing that we need to touch on before we finish up imperialism is we have to understand, and I touched on this before, but we really need to understand imperialism helped lead to militarism. So this aggressive buildup of forces, uh, and so part of that is the idea of intimidating other countries. And so I referenced that when I talked about the dreadnoughts and all that. And so that's a big part of this too. And so part of this, yes, you're trying to intimidate other countries and all that, but part of it is this idea that, okay, we're going to have all these colonies overseas. We need to have the troops and the military force, the weapons to defend it from people because that's what keeps them from walking in and claiming it for themselves. And so that's a big part of this imperialism factor too, is because of imperialism, it creates a need for these large forces to where you're getting in Europe, guys, these, you know, couple million man armies. So huge, huge numbers. And then the final main cause of World War One, guys, is entangling alliances. And so entangling alliances, I like to describe it like this: when you have your TV set up, right? You got your Xbox plugged into it. If you're like um, my wife's brother, you got your PlayStation hooked up to it as well. You have maybe some kind of speaker system, Blu-ray. Uh, so you have all these things, all these cords back there. You have the power cords for these things, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know about you guys, but it seemed like when I was growing up in my house, we always managed to tangle all those cords up together. So then, when you try and take something out and move it or replace it or whatever, um, you'd go to unplug it and you pull it out and yank everything else with it because they're all tangled up together. That's what entangling alliances is like. And so basically, guys, during the late 1800s, during the early 1900s, you had these countries that were making all these alliances with each other. And so that became kind of an issue. So, for example, guys, you had the dual alliance between Austria-Hungary and Germany, which made them the Central Powers, and then you had the Entente Cordiale, and so this was an alliance between France and Russia, which this stemmed from trade. They were like, hey, we want to be trade partners. Let's also make a military alliance as well. And so Entente Cordiale basically means, hey, we have an understanding between one another. But at the same time, the Russians are also allies with Serbia. And so, guys, France is not allies with Serbia. They don't care about Serbia really, either way. But because they're allies with Russia and Russia is allies with Serbia, if Serbia does something and is drawn into war, that means France is going to get drawn into war. Just when I pull out one piece of equipment from behind that TV, um, the rest of the stuff's going to try and get yanked out too because it's all tangled up. Um, so that's exactly what happens, guys. Is you have all these interconnecting alliances, and so one country gets dragged into a war. Boom! It sets off this chain of events where now all of a sudden all these treaties are being activated, and all these countries are now in a war, and that's exactly what ends up happening. Um, and part of that was some of these were secret alliances, which makes it even more dangerous because you might not even know what you are messing with. So if I'm picking a fight with um, France, for example, they had a secret alliance with Britain. I don't know that. I think, oh yeah, sure, I'll take on Russia too. And then I go to war with France, and boom, all of a sudden, Britain declares war on me. Okay, so that's a big part of the issue as well. Now, that's the powder keg. That's how we typically look at these causes, guys. Is that's the powder keg. That's the black powder keg, right? For the gunpowder. And so when you have just gunpowder, um, it's not really dangerous. It's not very deadly. Obviously, you have to be careful around it, but it's not going to cause any problems, right? It's when you introduce that flame to the gunpowder that it goes boom. Okay, and so that flame, that spark, is introduced to this situation that's building in Europe in the early 1900s. That spark is basically brought about by this Serbian nationalist group, the Black Hand. And so the Black Hand, they're operating out of Bosnia. If you guys recall, Bosnia was given to Austria-Hungary. The Serbians did not like that. They said, hey, these people are Serbian. They should be they're mostly Serbian. They should be part of Serbia. The Bosnians, many of the Bosnians are not happy about that. We don't want to be part of Austria-Hungary. We want to be part of Serbia. So remember, guys, this goes back to that time period of revolutions in like the 1820s into the 1840s, where Serbia was fighting for independence and this idea of a greater Serbia. Okay, that nationalism coming into play. So June 28th, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, he is the heir to the throne of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He decides he's going to go on a tour of the empire with his wife, and they're visiting Bosnia, and they're going on a little parade route through town, waving to his subjects and all that in an open car. And you have members of the Black Hand, this Serbian nationalist group, essentially, terrorists group, essentially is what you could call them, and they had a plot to kill the Archduke on this parade route, and so it's kind of an interesting situation. You have all these mishaps go on, and the Archduke, one person gets cold feet and walks away. The other person throws a grenade, bounces off the car, lands somewhere else. And when that happens, actually, the Archduke says, hey, I want to go visit the people in the hospital, because it blew up around the crowd that was at the parade. I want to go visit the people at the hospital and make sure they're okay. So they go to the hospital. They're trying to get back on the parade route after visiting these people in the hospital. And the driver gets lost, and it just so happens one of the assassins that had already given up, I guess I'm not going to kill this guy, sees him on this little side street and shoots him and his wife, kills them both. And so now you have this international incident, and obviously there's a lot of fingers to point towards Serbia. They pretty quickly get an understanding of, okay, this is a Serbian nationalist group. They have well-founded suspicions that Serbia is supporting this group, and they want to support terrorist kind of activity to get Bosnia to be part of Serbia. And so Austria-Hungary, they say, okay, we're going to teach Serbia a lesson. And so they basically make all these demands, or we're going to go to war with you. One of them was, the ultimatum of, okay, either you become a protectorate of Austria-Hungary, so basically you'll rule yourself within your own territory, but you'll actually be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, or we're going to war. And this just was not acceptable for the Serbians. They accepted all their demands except to become a protectorate. Meanwhile, Germany is backing Austria-Hungary. They're like, yep, bring it on. Let's go to war. Let's do this. Let's show how big and tough we really are. They want to show off their military strength. And so when Serbia declines to become a protectorate of Austria-Hungary, July 28th, Austria-Hungary declares war, and then all these treaties, all these alliances start kicking in and taking effect, right? So Germany declares war on Serbia, Russia declares war on Austria-Hungary and Germany, France declares war on Germany, right? The two, Germany and France, they're mobilizing. They want to get after it for what happened in the Franco-Prussian War. We talked about that last week. And so the French would love to avenge that. They would love to take back Alsace-Lorraine. And so now it's time to get it on. We've started World War One, and it's something as silly as that triggered a world war where millions and millions of people will die. And so it's very unfortunate. All right, guys, that does it for today. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon.